We really wanted to kind of go for the authentic look for this. The client really wanted us to sell to the gamers that this is the authentic version of Game of Thrones. A lot of the performances in the show are quite subtle. It's about tension, it's about two characters looking at each other and having a connection just from eye contact or just from a little bit of a subtle performance, which in some ways is the most difficult thing to do. So the kind of trailer is made up of two different sections really. You've got the literal, you seeing the hero characters in their environments. And then between that you've got a more of a stylistic representation of the houses themselves. And each one of those sigils is being kind of covered with ice and frost. We wanted one single flowing camera move in and out of those sections. So from the literal into the abstract, from the abstract into the literal.
The whole trailer is a traveling raven, and every character in the trailer is holding a scroll, which is like a call to war. And it's a subtle thing, and I'm sure it might take a few watches of the show to realize it's a little tying element.
By far the most challenging aspect of this trailer was the likenesses. We didn't have access to the actors, we didn't have access to scan data, and trying to get the likeness of a character that is so well known is very, very difficult.
You could push it to the point where you think it's getting there, but it's not got the essence of the character, and then in trying to capture that essence, you can push it too far and it ends up just turning into a bit of a stylised, caricatured version of it.
You can kind of get the model looking accurate, you can get the shaders looking accurate, you can do some beautiful turnarounds, you get animation involved, and then very quickly you can lose a likeness. I'd say finding the likenesses was very difficult, but keeping them was probably even more difficult.
Because I was doing a character from start to finish, it really helped get to an end result quicker. I could do a model, stick a quick green on it, throw a texture on it, put some shaders on, do a render, and that would inform every single aspect. That's the main thing really, get as many iterations as quick and as fast as possible.
And it was one of those things where the more eyes that you could get on something, feedback from lots of different people, because each person that looked at it would spot something different that didn't quite feel right or look right, whereas that may get past another pair of eyes. So it was a real team effort.
When you're not working with scan data, one of the toughest things is trying to get the focal lengths in your renders to match the photography. When you were looking at your renders and you thought this is what needs changing, they needed changing for the right reasons, it wasn't some other factor.
You need to kind of research what lenses we use. So we found, kind of looking at Game of Thrones for instance, they love a long lens, minimum is maybe 100mm. We did start off a lot wider than that. We started off with like a 35mm because we had this epic kind of castle behind the Dragonstone castle in the background.
We've changed the position of the camera as well. It was too low initially, but then you look at the show and it's like most of the cameras are eye level or higher.
You could see that lens just wasn't feeling right. She didn't look like she looks in that show because we just weren't shooting her the same way that the cinematographer was shooting her.
You can't just get a character to look amazing in a raw render. You build up the render in a way that you can then work with it in post. Let me think. On Daenerys, at some point, we had about 10 lights. So each of those lights is on its own element. So then in post, you can then control each of the light. What I find useful is I split the highlights of an object because most of the noise is in the highlights. I'll separate the highlights, I'll clean them up, like blur them, sort of like interpolate between frames, and then I put them back on top and it looks like it's like a more expensive render, but it's not really. Because again, it's about familiarity. That's the whole thing with Game of Thrones, is you gotta feel like these characters are the kind of characters I've seen on the show. These are the people I fell in love with, or I love hating. So it's not just about getting a nice shot, it's about getting the authentic shot.